All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello. I was just checking myself, and I think I'm all here. What a show we've got. Wow, it's there's so much going on. We're going to get right into it. Yeah. Shout out to Albert, who managed to make it by today. Hey, Albert.
Albert, thank you.
What's going on with you, man? What's going on with you, man?
It's kind of slow in the sports world, but the Giants are winning, and they're scoring a lot of runs. And we won 2 games yesterday, Mark.
It's what's that? We're not going to what?
We won 2 games yesterday, and we finished the rain delay game, and then we won again. We scored a bunch of runs. In
the heat and the rain, the Giants are rocking it. Speaking of the heat, we'll get to that in a moment. Kim?
A little cooler in Petaluma today.
Is it?
Kim, how are you?
Yeah, well, compared to what it's been, I guess, huh? Yeah. California bakes, but man, the rest of the country bakes along with it. I mean, and the rest of the world bakes. Did you see the Taj Mahal is threatened by sea level rise? It's threatened by, check this out, Albert, you can find this. The Taj Mahal
Google it.
May have some erosion due to the river alongside the Taj Mahal rising.
I saw that. It says the floodwaters are right next to it and that they've inundated a garden behind it.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, these temperatures are otherworldly, you know. There it is. Rising water touched Taj Mahal's walls for the first time in 45 years. Who hustled that quickly? Was that you, Albert?
Yeah.
Wow.
Albert, thank you.
You really stepped up with that. I'm impressed. The monument is one of the 7 new wonders of the world. And officials said that water was yet to enter the basement. But there it is. The basement holds the tombs of Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal. The water rose above the low flood level of 150.8 meters, they say. Wow. Boy, that's a pretty thing, the Taj Mahal, isn't it? It's just apparently at sunrise, it's magnificent. That's where all the tourists go at sunrise. But the temperatures have been, as I say, otherworldly. Phoenix broke their heat record 19th day of temperatures at 110 degrees or higher.
What?
That sounds miserable.
Yeah. I mean, it's not only miserable, it's insanely unhealthy. And their hospitals worldwide, you know, Rome has been incredibly hot. And I saw that the Rome hospital hadn't seen an overflow like this since COVID. You'll remember what Italy's experience was with COVID. It was devastating.
Yeah.
And, you know, now these hospitals are seeing that overflow as a result of the heat. And look, it's July. This is going to continue in this country and beyond. There have been 12 heat-related deaths in the Phoenix area already in 2023. 55 other deaths under investigation might be related to the heat. It's the most deadly disaster in this region of Phoenix in the Southwest. But again, the haves and have-nots play out in all this, right? The 56% of those who succumbed to the heat last year in Maricopa County were unhoused. Of the people who died indoors, all of them were living in homes and buildings that were not cooled. So that's the story there. But I sort of think it's against that backdrop that we do a lot of other things. So it's a long, hot. What's that?
I was going to say, I don't have an air conditioner.
Really?
We haven't really needed it. You know, it might be 100 degrees for a week out of one week out of the year in the summer. And so it didn't seem like something we really ever needed. And I kind of, and maybe this is because I don't have one, I consider it a badge of honor not to have one. Like, okay, what weakling needs a air conditioner for 1 week out of the year? Come on, people.
Well,
but maybe I'm a fool.
I used to be that way. Never ran the AC. This is in Southern California. I used to be that way. And I'll tell you what happened over the course of about 15 years. The number of hot days that required air conditioning began to rise. In other words, there were more frequent times and periods during which I needed to run that air conditioning. I mean, that's, in this weird way, how you notice in your own life, wow, things are changing. It's hotter longer, and you just have to run AC. But again, it's a first world situation where you even have the ability to say, nah, I don't want AC.
Right.
And you can have it if you want it. Now, in your house, you have it, right?
No.
You literally don't have it. It's not that you
No.
don't run it. You don't have it at all.
We have a heater, but there's no air conditioning. No. The air conditioning is a fan. And yesterday we got an ice maker. So that's great.
Kim, how are you?
Wow, that's wild. Well, I love a plan. Good for you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Coming up on the show today, John Rothmann, the sage of San Francisco, will join us. He likes to talk politics, and he also has hinted that he'd like to be mayor of San Francisco. But I mean, who doesn't want to be mayor? But Rothmann really feels as though, and he is mobbed up with the political world, and there has been the drumbeat of conversation about, will Rothmann run? Well, now he has competition, and we'll talk to him about that. And again, he's not saying he's going to run.
Here is a situation.
He may have a little bit of a situation. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Rothmann joins us, and then in the 11 o'clock hour, Sam Rubin joins us from Hollywood, California, and we'll go down to Hollywood primarily because there is a major labor action in Hollywood, and you may see it, some of you, as actors, writers, Hollywood, they're all making too much money anyway. Now they're complaining they're not making as much. Actually, they barely make a living, some of them. They're, comfortably middle class, I would say. The waiter-actor thing is a real thing. But more to the point, the two on strike together, the Writers Guild and the SAG-AFTRA Guild, which is for performers, it's a real labor moment. And I've talked about this before, the fact that this is a moment for labor, and I felt labor was having a bigger moment nationwide, even though I think fewer than 10% of the workforce is, or less than 10% of the workforce is unionized. There are more and more efforts to unionize and collective bargain. But there's another interesting aspect to this, because some of the demands of the performers are those that actually will benefit you, the public. I had an interesting piece sent to me by Bill Mann, the media critic, longtime media critic in the Bay Area, and now he lives in the Northwest. And it made this point that when it comes to handling the horse that is already out of the barn, that is AI, all right, artificial intelligence, if you're waiting for the government to do it, you're going to be waiting a long time. You are more likely to see the government break up Google than you are to see the government handle AI in any kind of responsible way. And so what does that mean? It means that it falls to oftentimes moments like this, workers, unions, to regulate on their own the effects of AI on their work and on the environment in which they work. I thought it was a fascinating piece. So Sam Rubin in Hollywood will give us the story that's going down there and the long-term effects that it may have. And one last thing, and then I want to get to these Michigan electors. Last night, I was with a number of writers in Hollywood, and I'm talking to them about how long it's going to go on and exactly what they want, and, are they optimistic or whatever. And one of them told me something that you may be aware of this already, but I didn't think of it. They said that everybody's pulling out of Comic-Con, but Comic-Con is going down. Now, what is Comic-Con, Albert? You know what Comic-Con is, right?
It's just a bunch of nerd culture going to be there, like comic books. And...
Albert, thank you.
But
It's
a
just
lot
a
of like
bunch of nerd
Marvel's used it, and DC's also use it as a great promoting platform. And that's
Thank
where
you.
it's kind of like the gathering place of nerds, but it's cool. It's like a
It's
cool thing to do.
No, I mean, I think it's not even nerds anymore. It is, yeah, it is cool. Maybe it is, but it's the cool nerds. It's like saying the Marvel movies, they're for nerds. Okay, they're for nerds, made 150 million in the first weekend. You know what I mean? It's clearly more mass appeal. And what's happened is that Comic-Con world has now expanded. And Albert's right. It was targeted or frequented by those who are really comic book nerds, but then it became mass appeal. So, here's the point. To Albert's last mention, oftentimes it's a platform for promoting different things. Television shows, motion pictures. I mean, there's Star Trek people who come there. There are DC Universe people, Marvel Universe people. There are autograph signings. So there's a whole revenue stream for actors and performers and for studios and for different projects that are underway at the studios at Comic-Con. So what am I getting around to? They are going to run Comic-Con, but none of those things I just mentioned are going to happen.
Yeah,
So,
that was one of the main calling cards back the past 4 or 5 years is the kind of like breaking the fourth wall. You get the fans get to finally ask all the actors and creators about what's the secrets behind all the shows that are going on.
Yeah.
So obviously that's
exactly,
this year,
exactly.
So.
Those panels were great, but if you want to get if you're an actor, and let's say you're a actor in Star Trek, one of the Star Treks, you can still sign 8x10s of yourself there at a table at Comic-Con and charge everybody $20 a signature. But you cannot, by union rule, sign any picture of yourself that has you in a wardrobe from Star Trek.
So a headshot's okay, but
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's like one example. There are so many examples of how if you are a performer, if you're in SAG-AFTRA, you must respect a number of restrictions when it comes to Comic-Con. It comes to meeting your fans. So it's going to prevent a lot of fans and a lot of performers from actually interacting this year at Comic-Con. And it'll be something that's going to prevent a lot of performers from making money, which is too bad because a lot of them, as I say, need that additional revenue.
Is it a good moment for me to bring up the thing I sent you about Eric Pasoja?
Please bring up that Eric Pasoja moment.
Okay,
He's the performer who... Go ahead. Who talked about that's the AI part of this. Check this out.
Right. So he posts this. I'm friends with this Academy Award-winning sound engineer who happens to be a dad at my school.
Look at you.
So I know.
Okay.
Kim, how are you?
All right.
He posts this from Eric Pasoja, and it reads like this. Just to give you an idea of what's at stake with SAG-AFTRA, back in 2014, I worked on Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. I played a Belgian geneticist in several scenes doing mocap work. I don't know what that exactly is, with Kevin Spacey. I know, don't, he says. I was compensated for the face scanning process and the acting work. But what happened next, he says, was unexpected. A friend called me after the game's release saying, "Hey, my son just shot you." Turns out my likeness was also used in the online PvP game. Players can shoot me in the face, blow me up, stab me, push me off a cliff, burn me alive, all while I scream and die in extreme violence.
What?
That, he said, is not a Belgian geneticist. That is a completely different character. This game grossed over $1 billion. The online version where players pay a monthly subscription to, among other things, play my character and or kill my character was a significant part of that revenue.
Wow, well then he must be making a lot of money is what you're telling me off of that game.
All I received, says Eric, was the original session fee.
What?
I had no say in how my likeness was used or that it would be subjected to such violence. Kevin Spacey, he says, has never been in a movie that grossed $1 billion. Imagine if I had scenes in a movie with Kevin Spacey. Negotiations, residuals, and you wouldn't be able to murder my likeness. If you believe producers will fairly handle AI without specific legal boundaries, think again. We need to revolutionize actor compensation for the digital age. So... I thought that was very interesting that you let them scan your face for one reason and they take it and do something completely different with it.
Yeah, if you have faith that they are going to respect your likeness and compensate you, that faith is misplaced.
Right.
So we'll get into more of that at 11:15. If you're live and you're watching on the West Coast, that's Pacific time. And many of you watch in replay, which is cool. So you're welcome to join the show anytime. Thank you for joining however you do and whenever you do. And smash the like button like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
I do want to get into my fake electors. They are so cute. I want you to meet all of them. Let's do the fake elector thing. Albert, yes, thank you.
Thompson Show.
That's what I was waiting for. Now, how about those fake electors, everybody? It's terrific, you know. It's not just, fake is not just for Halloween anymore. You can dress up as an elector all year round. 16 fake electors who signed certificates falsely claiming President Donald Trump won Michigan in the 2020 election have been charged with multiple felonies. This is in the state of Michigan. This is the first time any of the fake electors have been charged with a crime related to the scheme, versions of which took place in multiple states. All 16 individuals were each charged with 8 felonies, 2 counts of forgery, 1 count of conspiracy to commit forgery, 2 counts of election law forgery, 1 count of conspiracy to commit election law forgery, 1 count of publishing a counterfeit record, and 1 count of conspiring to publish a counterfeit record, and a partridge in a pear tree.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
The group of fake electors from Michigan includes current and former state GOP officials. In fact, there's a Republican National Committee member, a sitting mayor, a school board member, and Trump supporters who were the plaintiffs in a frivolous lawsuit when they tried to overturn the 2020 election results. It was all part of a bigger plan, right? Michigan was one of the 7 battleground states, and that's where the Trump campaign put forward states of fake electors as part of their plan to undermine the Electoral College process and potentially, anyway, disrupt Congress's certification of the 2020 election results on January 6th. The 16 fake GOP electors from Michigan met in Lansing on December 14th of 2020. They signed certificates falsely proclaiming that Trump won the state and that they were the rightful electors. They were rebuffed by police when they tried to enter the State House. There's video of that. You've probably seen it. They were trying to enter the State House to deliver the papers, according to the videos. That was happening while the real group of Democratic electors were meeting inside that building. Of course, Joe Biden defeated Trump by a little more than 154,000 votes in the 2020 election. In the view of the Trump campaign, these were, quote, alternate electors who could have somehow replaced Biden's electors when Congress counted the electoral votes on January 6th. That would have handed Trump a second term. But a whole bunch of legal minds have weighed in on this, and, including in the Trump White House and the Trump campaign, they thought the plan was unconstitutional, possibly illegal. So there's an audio recording. You may remember this. It was from one of these electors. It was run on CNN. Here's a quote from it. "We fought to seat the electors. The Trump campaign asked us to do that." It's from Michonne Maddock, the co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party. Those remarks are made at a public event that was organized by the conservative group Stand Up Michigan. So, who are these people? The 16 Michigan electors. What do we know about them? There they are. You see them. Well, let's meet them. Michonne Maddock. We'll meet a few of them. 55, previously co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party, married to a GOP member of the Michigan House of Representatives. She publicly bragged, as I just mentioned to you, about the Trump campaign's involvement in the fake elector scheme. The Maddox spoke at a pro-Trump event in Washington, D.C. a day before the insurrection. And Michonne Maddox was in D.C. on the day of the attack. She wasn't at the U.S. Capitol, but she was in D.C. She said this is part of a national coordinated lawfare to stop Trump. Kathy Burden is 70. Gosh, it's too bad. You know, when you're 70, normally you're on cruise ships and enjoying your life. Not Kathy Burden. She's one of the Republican National Committee members representing Michigan. Previously one of the pro-Trump delegates at the Republican National Convention in 2016. How about Kent Vanderwood? He's 69 years old. He's the current mayor of Wyoming, Michigan. That's right, you heard it right. He's the mayor. It's a small city near Grand Rapids. He was previously a longtime member of the Wyoming City Council, won the mayor's race last year, and during the 2020 campaign, he was chair of the 2nd District Republican Party. Amy Facinello. She's got a great last name and a great plan to overturn the election. She's 55, elected in 2020 as a member of the school board in Grand Blanc. B-L-A-N-C, Grand Blanc. It's a suburb of Flint. Reportedly, she was promoting QAnon-related material on her social media accounts. Previously, the vice chairwoman of the Genesee County Republican Party. And it goes on. There's 16 of these people. It seems to me they're all in their 60s and 70s. One guy, quite impressed of how active he is at 82. Come on, for 82, and you're getting in there and hatching a plan to overturn the government. Got to give him some credit for that. John Haggard is his name. He's 82, one of the plaintiffs in a frivolous lawsuit that tried to overturn the 2020 results in Michigan. Again, most 82-year-olds are kicking it, listening to The Mark Thompson Show and leafing through TV Guide. But not John Haggard. He is ready to pose as an elector. He served as a legitimate Trump elector from Michigan in 2016 when Trump did narrowly win that state. There they are, the faces of fraud. And
is he the Captain Kangaroo-looking guy down on the bottom right? No?
He does look like Captain Kangaroo, that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the dude or not. We'd have to Google it.
Cross-reference.
Well, it's the go ahead.
One of these alleged fake electors is a city clerk, and that's the person who's supposed to handle elections, so they know all about election law, right? They have no excuse. I was reading Michonne, the first woman that you talked about.
Yes.
She said,
say Michonne, I say Michonne.
Oh, Michonne, my bad.
No, sorry. I don't know. I'm actually thinking maybe it's my bad. All right.
Well,
it's both our bads. All
my
right,
bad. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, exactly.
This is the grand excuse. Well, they called us all into a meeting, and they asked us for the president, meaning Trump, to please sign these documents. And so we did, and we didn't know what we were signing. So they're going to claim ignorance as to what they were doing, like they had no idea they were signing on to be fake electors.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Right. We didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
We were just told to do this. Yeah. That's a tried and true excuse. It's been used pretty much along the way through the generations for everything from overturning an election to genocide. So you do have it as a...
Someone told me to, and so I did.
Yes, exactly. I wasn't going to question it, you know. But this is the real thing. As I mentioned, you know, these are swing states. What is troubling about this, in addition to the entire thing, is that you end up realizing that a lot of the people who are public officials who are there to perform a work of public service actually have their own agenda, and they are very much committed to the agenda to the point that they're ready to break the law to see that agenda in place. It's a troubling, cultish kind of fealty they have to their own agenda and to power. And I would say that this is the thing that troubles me most about America right now, is that there is, and you saw it in what you were talking about, Kim, was it yesterday when you were talking about the Secretary of State in Georgia, who was asked about, would you vote for Trump again? Well, if it was, this is a guy who was strong-armed into overthrowing the election in his state.
Better than Biden.
Better than Biden, is what he's saying. So this elector scheme, they didn't pull it off with any elegance, but they did have a plan. And in a weird way, it came close to altering the course of history and to overturning the election. It could have been something that succeeded, It was a little bit of the gang that couldn't shoot straight, but it was also, I'll put it this way, and this is what concerns me, the next go-round, they may have their act together in a bigger way.
Yeah.
So
I think it wasn't it Giuliani that was allegedly running this whole fake electors portion of the scam, because there's different wings and arms of the let's overturn the election scam, right? The fake electors part was overseen, according to CNN, by Rudy Giuliani.
Right, and I want to ask John Rothmann about that, because Giuliani's not yet mentioned in any kind of target indictment or indictment letters that we are aware of. It makes me wonder, he would seem to have blood on his hands, and he's certainly hip deep in this thing. Are they waiting, or is he making a deal, Giuliani, such that he can avoid prosecution? Or anyway, I'm going to ask Rothmann about that next. But that's the latest on the electors. They will, they're going to face the music now. So that's the story on that.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I think Kim's news, and then we go to Rothmann. Is that how it works here, Albert? What's the plan, sir?
Yeah, Kim's news, and then we'll get to our esteemed guest, John Rothmann.
I love that. Smash that like button like a boss. Give us a thumbs up. Kim's news, and then the great John Rothmann as we continue.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. Let us begin with the heat. As Mark mentioned, it's pretty bad. Phoenix, Arizona, setting more heat records during a heat wave that's gripping most of the U.S. Phoenix set a record for its warmest low temperature with 97 degrees at 4 o'clock this morning. The city broke a 49-year-old record this week for the most consecutive days with temperatures of at least 110 degrees.
That's where Ron Owens lives now.
Oh, wow.
Congratulations. Right.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Yeah, Ronnie, stay in that AC, baby.
This is the president of Israel. He says he wants to one day make peace with Palestine. President Isaac Herzog speaking before a joint session of Congress this morning on Capitol Hill. A number of progressive Democrats in Congress boycotted Herzog's remarks in protest of Israel's treatment of Palestinians. So it's a little controversy at Capitol Hill.
Rothmann could both clean up San Francisco as mayor and bring peace to the Middle East, I think. All in his first year in office.
I think it's possible. I think it is. The Biden administration suspending funding for the Wuhan Institute of Virology in China. That according to a memo from the Department of Health and Human Services that says the institute likely failed to comply with safety protocols and did not provide U.S. agencies with requested documents.
That's not fake. That's real.
Yeah.
The Chinese facility is at the center of a theory that COVID leaked from the lab in late 2019, triggering the global pandemic. The U.S. intelligence community has yet to reach a conclusion about how this virus emerged. The research institute has not received federal money since 2020.
Well, the lead doctor at that Wuhan Institute, it was that Emil Schaffhausen III. Yeah, he was the lead doctor. But they're now, even in that tepid statement, you can see that they essentially, they're certainly admitting to that gain of function work. They're admitting to the fact that A, there was no transparency or not sufficient transparency, and B, that there was some stuff going down that they talk about safety, but I would suggest that implied in that might be some of the other stuff. They don't mention gain of function. They don't mention, supercharging these viruses, but I think it's a short hop from where they are with that statement. What they do mention is they mention insufficient security and insufficient transparency. So
let us move on to, you got it. Yeah. Former President Trump could be facing charges of conspiracy to defraud the United States, witness tampering, and deprivation of rights under color of law. Special counsel Jack Smith sent Trump's attorneys a target letter related to the Justice Department's 2020 election probe. The former president reportedly does not intend to testify before a grand jury. The rejection rate for loan applications jumped to 21% in the 12 months through June, the highest level in 5 years, according to the latest edition of the Fed survey, which is published every 4 months. Overall, credit applications declined to the lowest level since October of 2020. The rejections have been broad-based across age groups and highest among those with credit scores below 680. So a lot of people, whether it's credit cards or, as you see here, a mortgage application, a lot of people just are being turned away and not getting those loans.
Jeez.
It's
such a contrast to the world that existed before the bank crash, right? I mean, the 2 bank crashes ago, right, where anybody got a loan. You could get money for loan for anything. Now it's tighter than it's ever been, I guess. Isn't that what they're implying?
Yeah, that's exactly what they're implying. And I think a lot of people are feeling the need to take out loans, right? I mean, because times are tough.
Right.
So,
that too. So they bump a credit card at those usurious rates that I've talked about before. And, you've got all of America bumping credit cards and just sinking in debt because you never get out from under those ridiculous interest rates on a credit card.
Yeah, it's kind of a cycle, isn't it?
Exactly.
The California Secretary of State is allowing a campaign to collect signatures to legalize magic mushrooms. The initiative would not only let doctors prescribe the mushrooms, but it would allow people to grow them for recreational use. Recreational, woohoo! Nearly 547,000.
Stay at home and get baked.
Yeah. Okay.
Nearly 547,000 signatures are needed to get on the ballot. There is a Houston woman who has been locked up in a Dubai prison for 2 months for shouting in public.
Wow.
Yeah. Tierra Allen says she raised her voice when she felt intimidated by a rental car employee while trying to retrieve her passport. Texas Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is looking into her case now. You go to these other countries, I'm telling you, you look the wrong way. You sneeze, you can be arrested for whatever.
Yeah, and lastly, Americans have a target, I would suggest.
Oh, of course.
Americans are a target, yeah.
Last story before we go to John Rothman. Make way for Tiger King on the 2024 presidential ballot. It's happening. The campaign for former Oklahoma Tiger Preserve owner Joseph Maldonado, better known as Joe Exotic, announced Tuesday that it had raised the needed funds to get on the presidential ballot in New Hampshire. Maldonado says he will run as a Democrat, is serving currently a 21-year federal prison sentence on charges including a murder for hire plot against rival wildlife park operator Carol Baskin, as well as violations of the Endangered Species Act. So Joe Exotic would be running the show from the Hoosgow, I guess is how that would work out.
Wow. Yeah, that's
But we know from the whole former President Trump situation that
he could do it.
You could be in jail and be president. So
certainly could. It's perfectly within the.
He might have good company in there.
Yeah.
Just saying. I'm Kim McAllister. This is the Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson? could try ignoring it, sir.
I cannot believe it.
Whoever is reducing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
Supposing you brought the light inside the body.
Google it.
What are the porn stars doing, Mark?
How about it for a great newscast from Kim? She brought it all together. Kim,
how are you?
And great first half hour from Albert.
Thank you.
And how about it for this guy? Might he be the next mayor of San Francisco? He's definitely a sexy fool. We love him here. He's John Rothmann, the former KGO radio host. And he likes to opine, as he should, on those things that he has deep knowledge of. That's politics, history. I guess I'll just start with this mayoral thing, John. You saw the news. Kim, why don't you share the news? Maybe John isn't aware of it.
Well, I was waiting for the announcement from the Rothmann campaign that we would see a mayoral run, but now we have the Levi Strauss heir who is set to try to run. He hasn't officially announced yet, but I guess this is a guy who runs Turning Point, which is a charity for people that are found themselves in trouble. So he's got that going for him. His mother owns, I think, 11% of Levi Strauss. Her name is Mimi Haas. So he comes from, he's the Levi Strauss heir. He comes from money. And I think he might pose a real problem for the Rothmann campaign.
John, would you like
when
to
I
comment?
read the article, this is what my first thought was, oh, no.
Now, you're talking about Daniel Lurie.
Yeah.
He's a very fine fellow. He, I believe, probably will run. London Breed is running. We have several members of the Board of Supervisors who are planning to run. I'm giving it serious thought. I want you to know every day I have more and more people urge me to run, and I will make a decision at the approach time.
All right. Well, that's
really?
Spoken.
That's
and
what we
answered.
get from you. I mean, we're your friend.
He's answering like a politician.
Yeah,
Who, me?
He's absolutely answering like a politician.
No, I haven't made a formal decision yet. I am in meetings on a daily basis with various people who've asked me to run. I have a broad swath of people who have come from the left and the right. A lot of people who I respect, and but it's a big decision to make, and you don't want to run just for the sake of running. You want to run with really something to say and a platform to run on. May I, by the way, make a quick comment before we really start, Mark? And that is, I want to thank all of your listeners and all of you, because my numbers on my podcast, Around the Political World with John Rothmann, are soaring. We are now over 10,000. And in large measure, I think, because of your very generous plugging of the podcast. So I want to thank you very much.
Wow. Well, first of all, I love being acknowledged in any way, as you're well aware. And I congratulate you on doing well, on in a short time. I think you've been on for maybe a month, right?
Yes, that's precisely correct. And it's really very gratifying, but we have a lot more to do. And may I tell you, the most interesting thing to me are the number of people who say they miss the radio. They miss the opportunity to call in and interact. And they're absolutely right. One of the real tragedies for the San Francisco Bay Area is that there is no talk radio station for local talk, for people to air their grievances. In my commentary this morning on my own podcast, I titled it Hypocrisy. And I talked about the hypocrisy we're going to talk about later on. One of the things I said is not having a talk radio station in a major media market like San Francisco is criminal. Anyway, that's...
It is wrong. And it, as you know, I think it has to do with the fact that these media mergers have permitted large companies to hold all of these different media properties. And as a result, you're just not even... the format of KGO isn't even recognized. The importance of KGO isn't even recognized. The legacy that KGO has isn't either. And it's just X's and O's, and it's just a line item. And it's easier just to get rid of it and run syndicated stuff, and you do a rev share, and that's it. I mean, that is really what happened here. It's not as though there was any sort of real evaluation of importance to the community, the way it could be sold. You certainly could have made money at KGO. I've talked about it before. WABC in New York, it was taken over. Same company, by the way, Cumulus. They sold it, and they sold it for the price of a Pacific Heights townhome, okay? And Now it's making incredible money. Now it's a right-wing radio station in New York, WABC, but it's a local station. KGO could have been a real outpost for great talk, and if local ownership had purchased it, and it could have purchased it for much less than WABC. I mean, Cumulus would have let that thing go. It absolutely could have been a moneymaker, and yet here we sit, and it's not.
I agree with you, and I lament what has happened.
Yeah, and lament... Yeah, I think it's a ding word. I agree. John, let's talk about these latest indictments and other key investigations involving Donald Trump. There are now so many that, you know, it looks like a legal buffet. I don't know what you take back to your table on that plate first, right? They started with the most tepid charges in New York, right? That's what got all of the cameras, and that was the media event. But the reality is, quickly it got into the documents case, then it got into, as we've now seen, the J6 indictments, and eventually there'll be indictments beyond that. The Georgia case is coming as well. So please speak to all of this, if you would.
The big story is the one going on right now. We owe a great debt to the Justice Department, who have not criminalized or abused the Justice Department, but actually have pursued crimes. Donald Trump committed crimes. And I think when the indictment is released, we will see that. He attempted to subvert American democracy. He, frankly, committed sedition. And may I say to you, you opened with the electoral fraud. It's a fascinating case because indeed it was a fraud. And if you listen carefully to Kim's report, which I very much appreciated, she made clear that the elector said, oh, I didn't know what I was signing. I just did what President Trump asked me to do. Well, this is going to be fascinating. May I tell you what really bothers me? And I used hypocrisy as my theme this morning, is the hypocrisy of the Republican Party. Can you imagine if this were Joe Biden or Barack Obama? Jim Jordan and the House Judiciary Committee would be raising bloody murder, and they'd be going after this issue 100%, and they would be, well, attacking. Instead, what do? They obfuscate, they accuse, they defend Donald Trump. There are only 3 Republicans who have stood up, who are running for president. Congressman Hurd, former Congressman Hurd of Texas, Will Hurd, former governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, and former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie. May I point out that all of those in the Republican Party presidential cavalcade who have opposed Donald Trump are formers, but none of the current office holders, none of these people who have gone after Hunter Biden, for instance, or who accuse Joe Biden of accepting massive amounts of money as bribes, none of these people have been able to prove anything. And they continue to pursue that line, but they're silent on Donald Trump. It is hypocrisy, and it's dangerous. And I'm very concerned more about the attitude of Republicans and the Republican Party leadership than I am about anything else, because this country needs a vital, vibrant two-party system, and we're not getting it. So that's my take on Donald Trump. I expect an indictment. I expect he will ultimately go to trial. And if the evidence is as it appears to be, and if you've never read the January 6th committee report, which is the basis of all of this, then you're missing a tremendous read. May I also make the comment, because you alluded to it, that Donald Trump appears on Fox. And as you know, I won't call it Fox News because that would be an oxymoron. But there was a so-called town meeting last night with Sean Hannity. It wasn't a town meeting. It was the most ridiculous display of a sellout by someone who calls himself a newsman. It was just pathetic. And I know you have examples. I know I heard you say in the preliminary stuff, you have a recording of him on another Fox show. This is tragic. May I commend CNN, with whom I very often have problems, for at least covering this wall to wall. And that is really, really important. And Maggie Haberman of the New York Times has been absolutely superb in her coverage. And she's interviewed on a regular basis. So my commentary on Trump, I have predicted with you when we were on KGO and here with you on your podcast that Donald Trump will be indicted. And I believe that the evidence will prove, just based on the evidence we have already, that he deserves conviction. But my concern is not whether he goes to jail. I know people get upset with me for saying this. I don't want to see him go to jail. I want to see him convicted in a court of law. And I want his supporters to have to fess up to the fact that this is the ultimate Elmer Gantry of American politics, a man who has sold a lie and continues to lie. And that, to me, is the bottom line.
All right. I want to follow up on, clearly he'll be indicted, but I want to follow up on the trial here in a second. But first, sure. Obfuscate is a ding word. And cavalcade, I see. Okay, yeah, that's a ding word.
No, if I run for mayor, if I really run for mayor, I've got to make sure that my language is comprehensible, understandable, and that I don't get too many dings.
Well, you speak well. Dings are a good thing. Hypocrisy, people are saying I should be dinging hypocrisy because you're using that. You did that. It was the theme of your show today. I'm not. The only reason I'm not dinging hypocrisy is because by now hypocrisy is so much a part of the vernacular. It's just. It's not vernacular to be a ding word, but it's just not. So, but John does serve them up. The only person who serves up as many ding words as John Rothmann is Michael Snyder on Fridays, the Culture Blaster reviewer. So, so bravo, sir. Kim will have a question in a moment. I just want to quickly follow up. You say I predicted he'll be indicted. Clearly, he'll be indicted, John. He's getting the Target a letter on indictment, and he's. You talk about the trial, though. We all, I think, hope for justice and a fair trial. It does appear that his strategy of delay is working. It's already been delayed. Even these indictments have been delayed for some time for any number of reasons. They're collecting evidence, they're collecting testimony, they're getting depositions, etc. But my question to you is, do you think that any of this stuff will happen? I'm talking about trials and results of trials prior to the election.
Probably not. I listened very carefully yesterday to Judge Cannon, who is clearly trying to delay as long as she can.
She's the Trump-appointed attorney, right?
That Trump-appointed
judge. Appointed attorney.
My feeling is I believe in speedy justice, but more than that, the fact that he has been indicted, and you made the point earlier. I see we have another person in federal prison who is running for president. I want to thank you for that news bulletin, but. Do you understand that Eugene V. Debs ran in 1920 as the socialist candidate for president from prison? He was convicted of sedition. He was granted clemency, not a pardon, but clemency by Warren Harding on Christmas Eve, 1921. And I believe that that's probably what will happen in the case of Donald Trump. He'll ultimately be convicted, I believe that, and he'll be granted clemency. And just to set the record straight, the great criticism that people had of me when I was on KGO was my defense of Merrick Garland. I said Garland is methodical, he is careful, he is precise. That's his whole record as a judge. I want to remind everybody, and I say this as someone who lived through it, that between the time of the Watergate break-in and Richard Nixon's resignation was a little more than 2 years. It takes time to put together the evidence. And I would remind everyone that in the end, what brought Nixon down was a tape which was revealed the same week that he ultimately had to resign. A lot is going to come out about Donald Trump, and that is going to be critical. But more important in my judgment, is how the Republican Party responds. When they see the evidence, and by the way, it exists in part in the January 6th report, they will have to own up to it. And the fact that Republicans are making all these statements in defense of Donald Trump, that they're attacking Merrick Garland, that they are attacking the Justice Department, they're talking about weaponization. By the way, as Donald Trump himself talks about, if he becomes president again, he'll go after his enemies. He'll use the Justice Department. Talk about a weaponization. And the hypocrisy, which I addressed this morning in my podcast, is very simply this. There is a double standard, and I regret profoundly the absence of conscience by the Republicans. It's a shame for them and for the two-party system in this country.
Well, I mean, it's clearly true that what you said just does ring true, and it's sadly a comment on America. And you know, you talk about a two-party system. I don't know. I mean, I think there's so much wrong with the American political system. You really should open up the hood on a bunch of it. But now you have.
Do you want to say a word about no labels? Do you want to say a word about no labels?
Oh, and yeah, no labels is the no labels is the. They claim to be, as I was saying yesterday. I love the name No Labels when they're actually. I think they're underpinned by right-wing ideology, aren't they, John? Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, No Labels claims that they want to come up with solutions. They did not begin as a political party. They are now talking about running candidates for president and vice president. And one of the most interesting aspects of that is Joe Manchin is the person most talked about as the potential candidate for president. Let me tell you, third parties in this country have not won an election for president since Abraham Lincoln in 1860. And the idea that they are spoilers is clear. We saw it particularly graphically in the year 2000 in Florida with Ralph Nader on the ballot and his taking away enough votes, along with Pat Buchanan, from Al Gore to ensure George W. Bush's victory in that state. I have no problem with a problem solution oriented political movement. But once they translate that, and all with dark money, we are told over $70 million in dark money. That to me is unconscionable. And we need to expose these people for what they are. I am very concerned because I want to see a real battle between two people for the presidency of the United States. And I don't want to see an election thrown as it was in 2000 because of a so-called third party which hasn't got a chance of a snowball in hell of winning. And by the way, it's almost deceptive. No Labels claimed they weren't going to run a candidate for president. They were non-political. Now they're changing their approach. I think it's terrible.
Well, I think that if you look at the people behind it, the founders, et cetera, I think they're right-wing ideologies across the board.
Well, Joe Lieberman is not a right-winger, but
he's not
one of the key people.
I know he was a Democrat, and I know he ran on for was it vice
president with Al Gore.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. I consider Lieberman now. I think I'm a little more of a lefty than you are on certain things, but
no,
I don't.
He is to the right now. He certainly doesn't fit in the Democratic Party. There's no question about it. But Joe Manchin is a Democrat, maintains his support for the Democratic Party, and is critical. And we've seen this repeatedly in this very closely divided Senate. Joe Manchin remains a Democrat. I'm only asking for one thing, and that is that people understand what No Labels is. You can't run for political office with no labels. You've got to be who you are. You remember Jesse Ventura, who was governor of Minnesota, who was an independent, who got himself elected governor on his celebrity. And the interesting thing was the legislature would not support him because he had no party. So he was an ineffective governor because Democrats and Republicans alike were out to get him. Arnold Schwarzenegger had a big problem here in California. Although he was a Republican, most Republicans will tell you he wasn't much of a Republican. So right. I prefer the two-party system. I'd like to see it restructured in a way. And if we had time, I would share with you two men who ran for president, one as a Republican, one as a Democrat. John W. Davis ran as a Democrat. Thomas E. Dewey ran as a Republican. Separately, over the course of 4 decades, they gave a series of lectures on the two-party political system in America. And if I were teaching a civics class, I'd require that be read because I think it's really important.
Just because we're talking about no labels and you want to make a point about no labels, then I'm going to make this point about no labels and underscore it because I think it's important. And I respect the fact that you want a viable conversation under a banner of nonpartisanship, I'm going to call it. But 2 of the 3 officers of the No Labels Party of Florida have extensive GOP connections. Its chair, Kathleen Shanahan, the CEO of an electrical construction firm. She has a long history of working for prominent Republicans. As her online biography puts it, her positions in federal and state public policy include serving as a chief of staff for Florida Governor Jeb Bush, chief of staff to Vice President-elect Dick Cheney, deputy secretary of the California Trade and Commons, et cetera.
So you've made your point. Your point is clear. And there is no doubt.
These are people who contributed to the Trump campaign in big numbers, and you made the point well, I thought, about the fact that they're underwritten by dark money. No Labels is a fraud, is what I'm saying. And I agree. Okay, all right, moving on.
Not only do I agree, but I have a feeling you and I will be talking about that a lot in the days ahead.
John, sadly, we're in a situation with, I think, vulnerability about the next election because the seeds of doubt have been sown, even though the seeds of doubt don't need to be sown. The reality is, would you agree that a lot of the election tampering that's gone on has gone on the GOP side and in red states? And I'm sorry to make everything red-blue, but you see in Texas, for example, fewer and fewer places, polling places where you can actually vote. So and in that Sean Hannity interview to which you've referred, Trump, and you were so right, the Sean Hannity thing is, don't you think, Mr. President, that blah, 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 and then Sean Hannity states it out, a policy thing that Trump, of course, could never get his head around. And then Trump just sort of goes, yeah, exactly, Sean, and we need voter ID, So I want to talk about the next election and how you sort of see it working from a mechanistic standpoint, from the standpoint of the mechanisms of voting.
The mechanisms exist state by state. Remember that an election is not a national election, it's a state by state election. Every candidate for president now understands firmly, if they didn't before, that the Electoral College is what counts. Therefore, having strong organizations in each state, and let me be clear, that means that certain states are going to be targeted. That is the swing states, where you're going to see massive amounts of money spent. One of the points I made on KGO is there was no real political advertising on KGO because everybody knew the state was going to go for the Democrats. There was no doubt about it. So there will be a battle state by state, and Republicans and Democrats are gearing up for that battle. And so I believe that the fundamental integrity of the elections is sound. I believe all of these cries of election fraud are frankly ridiculous. No one doubts that Joe Biden won the election and that Donald Trump lost the election. And we have to pursue in our process of talking about this, that there is election integrity. Every time I hear somebody say, oh, the elections lack integrity, I think, what are you talking about? What nonsense. And may I say how destructive that is to America, not only at home, but abroad. The world and we, the people of this country, have to believe in that process. And let me tell you, if the process were corrupt, I would be the first one to jump in and say, well, we've got a serious problem here. But we don't have a serious problem. Donald Trump and his cohorts challenged the ballot in, I believe, it was about 70 different challenges, all of which were thrown out. Not a single one had credibility. And I would suggest to you that I do not believe election integrity is a matter of debate. We should all believe in it and subscribe to it and know that it works. And every Secretary of State, state by state, Democrat and Republican, and secretaries of state are generally the ones charged with this, make that statement. Raffensperger in Georgia, who has been the subject of abuse by Donald Trump. Let me tell you something. When that grand jury in Georgia brings down its indictment, that will be one of the key things. There was no fraud in Georgia, and all of Donald Trump's protestations to the contrary. It simply didn't happen. But you know something? And you know this, and I know this. If you repeat a lie often enough, people begin to think, maybe it's true. Robert Kennedy Jr. is a great example of that. His attack on Chinese and Ashkenazi Jews needs to be repudiated by everyone. And may I say, I was thrilled that key members of the Kennedy family have come out against Robert Kennedy Jr. And his nonsense. So these are the kinds of things, we got to knock these things down, and we got to pursue this as best we can in terms of our approach to politics.
John talks like a candidate. Mike in Willow Glen says that Rothmann's campaign has already started. Come on.
Was he talking about for mayor or for president?
I'm telling you, you speak like a presidential candidate. The podcast is red hot. You can catch it wherever you listen to podcasts. John Rothmann's podcast is Around the Political World with John Rothmann. Love talking to you. You make a lot of sense. You're provocative. You know your stuff. I love mixing it up with John Rothmann.
May I say
serve up some ding words? Yes.
Would you do me a favor? Wish your parents all the best. Tell them to stay cool. But if they listen to you on your podcast, their temperatures are entitled to rise with pride.
John Rothman, everybody. Thanks, pal.
See you Wednesday.
Love our John Rothman. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah. Kim, I know he gets going, and it's tough to, tough to manage. I saw you for a moment. It felt like you wanted to ask something or say something, but then we were just kind of, it was a runaway train. Between the two of us, you can't get a word in. When you're muted, you definitely can't get a word in.
You're muted.
Yeah.
See, I'm not having very good luck at speaking today. No, I was going to ask you, and maybe you have a thought on this. There are 7 states in which these fake electors, alleged fake electors, were, operating. The only arrests or charges so far coming for the 16 in Michigan. At the same time, or very close to, when this target letter is sent to Trump regarding the election scam case, right? I wonder if the two cases are related. If we're going to start seeing more of the fake electors in other states being charged as well, because some information came out in the investigation into Trump. And so that's why the charges are now coming. I just wondered that.
I think that you're asking sort of, there seems to be a momentum to the indictments, and you're wondering if there's, as that a result of new evidence or whatever. Rothman's still in the green room. You want to take that, Rothman, or you want me to take it? You want to take it? Yeah? Go ahead, John.
To respond to Kim.
Go ahead, John.
I don't believe that the corruption of the Electoral College process can succeed. And I will tell you, they constantly cite Hawaii in 1960. Of course, the people who cite Hawaii in 1960 don't know their history. You, Kim, as a Hawaiian princess, if you will, should understand it was Richard Nixon who said, stop the recount in Hawaii. It won't make a difference in the election. I lost, and that's the end of it. But I don't believe the Electoral College process in and of itself, this kind of challenge will succeed. I believe other states are also looking into these challenges. But when we take a look, and you can see the actual affidavits online, you understand how ridiculous it was. When Ronna Romney, the chair of the Republican, McDaniel, I should add her last name now, when she spoke and she said, well, we were simply doing what everybody else does. We had a right to challenge. They have a right to challenge, but I want to point out to you, this is the first time we've had phony electoral lists put together and an attempt to certify them. And those lists, interestingly enough, you can get them all at the Library of Congress because they were all submitted as well. So all I can say is this is a fraud and should not reflect, you can be for or against the Electoral College, that's a whole other debate, but should not reflect on the fact that the Electoral College fundamental integrity in terms of electors has been preserved. And so that's my comment on it.
If you're interested in more on the Electoral College, I'll just mention this. I have a long conversation with Tom Hartman on Monday on this show. So on Monday, we talk about the origins of the Electoral College, but more to the point, the misconceptions about the Electoral College. Of course, the Electoral College is ridiculous. It's awful. It's a hateful thing, and it's destroyed the democratic republic, I believe, that we exist in America. It's utterly absurd now. It doesn't reflect the voice of the people.
Mark, may I just quickly say, let me explain to you why the Electoral College continues to exist. And if you ask Hartman, he'll tell you the same thing. Mm-hmm. The election campaign on a popular vote can sometimes be disputed, can be very close. And we have seen that. In 1960, the election separating popular vote between Nixon and Kennedy was 112,450 or 119,480, depending upon which count you wanted. And you could actually have come up with a count in 1960 if you took away Alabama and Mississippi, where Kennedy was not on the ballot, but the Democratic rooster was. You could have come up with a scenario where Richard Nixon actually won the popular vote. I only point out that with all its flaws, and the Electoral College has many, many flaws, the idea was really to prevent corruption. And if you go back to 1960 and you consider what happened in Illinois and in Texas, where frankly, Dick Daley's corruption in Chicago cost Nixon Illinois, and Lyndon Johnson's corruption in Texas cost Nixon Texas. It could have been very close. So if we go to a straight popular vote and it's a narrow vote, then you've got a serious problem. So
you're telling me, let me just get clear on this. I'm out of time. So I'll deal with you next week if I have to. Are you telling me that you support the Electoral College as part of the democratic process?
No.
Good. God damn it. Jesus, are you kidding? I was ready to put John Rothmann in timeout, Kim. It was an awkward moment.
You and my wife. You and my wife. All right, I'll see you guys next week. But thank you for letting me chime in.
Yes. Love you. See you, John Rothmann. Yeah. All right. Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Man. I've got Sam Rubin coming up from Hollywood in like just a couple of minutes. Rothman ran a little long, but it's great. We love our Rothman. We can bathe in our Rothman for a while. But I don't think, honestly, he answered your question. But still, okay.
He didn't. But he did get to say something else, so that's always valuable.
No, I know. But so let me just speak to your question then.
Yeah.
I actually don't think that, I'm sorry, I do never swear, but I was just pushed to the brink. It wasn't really. I mean, come on, it's pretty tame as swearing goes.
Yeah, my bad. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I don't think that the evidence that you're sort of suggesting might now be in play as a result of other indictments is somehow pushing these things to a threshold at which they can now bring additional indictments in different states. It'll be state by state. It really comes down to those state attorney general decisions, right? Because they call them states attorney general in plural. Those various people in those states have to make those decisions. They have to bring those charges. They're state charges. So we know they're coming in Georgia, but as it pertains to the fake electors, you're right. We have to see them state by state. So we'll see. That's the group of Michigan fake electors, the 16 that we talked about at the beginning of the show. So, Albert, can I just do some brief stuff here? Can we then, Kim does the supersized news after Sam?
Yep.
Is that cool?
That sounds good.
Let me just mention this kind of while there is a break in the action here for just 30 seconds. Let me just mention that we are a crowdfunded show, and I want to thank you. Those of you in the audience who are part of that crowd, you're all part of the crowd if you're listening, if you've watched, even if you're in or out for a short time. We so appreciate you just stopping by. And as I say, that makes you part of the crowd. There are those who are part of the funding, and that really keeps us here. We're completely dependent on being supported by viewers and listeners. So there is no underwriting that will protect us. And so as we make payroll every month, we're so grateful to all of you. We've got some events coming up in August and September that I will tell you about, and I'll probably tell you about those at the beginning of August. August marks another change in the show. On August 1st, the show will start, this is for live viewers particularly, at 11 a.m. Pacific time. We'll go 11 to 1. Right now it starts at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It'll start at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So that is a change in our schedule. Nikki, who does a show on the Nikki Maduro channel, and a lot of people who take in this show watch that show too. We both came from KGO. She'll move to the morning, so she'll go 9 to 11. Then I'll come on at 11 on this channel. And on this podcast platform, we'll go 11 to 1. But again, we are crowd-funded, and big shout-out to all our funders who are able to support us the way you do it. I would have thought you'd have it up on screen by now. I've been talking about it for about a minute and a half, Albert, but apparently I wasn't talking about it long enough for you to put it up on the screen. I don't understand it.
Why are you yelling?
I just don't get it. I mean, I'm talking about it nonstop.
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
Mark's going on about support for the show. Maybe I'll put the support for the show banner up there. And Kim didn't do it either.
I did.
Is that you, Kim, who did it?
I did the banner, but Albert did the website, so we can't. It's a team effort to please you. It's
Kim,
a
how
team
are you?
effort to please Mark Thompson.
Albert, thank you.
Please me. Who do you think gets the money? I don't get it. I'm trying to pay you guys. Like it's all a favor to me.
Why are you yelling?
There it is. themarkthompsonshow.com. Click the Patreon or PayPal link to join our community. Make a contribution. Mostly, I want to thank you so much. Of course, super stickers and super chats help us along the way as well. In a moment, we're joined by the great Sam Rubin in Hollywood. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Why are you yelling?
That's not fake. That's real.
It's fantastic.
This is Mark Thompson.
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Yeah. So excited to go to Hollywood, California. There's a major labor action going on down there. 2 critical unions are on strike at the same time, as you're aware. The Writers Guild of America and the AFTRA-SAG union, the union that is involved with performers, on-camera people. I want to talk about how long this might last, the ripple effect in the world of Hollywood, and I want to talk about it with a guy who just knows the territory so very well. How about it for Sam Rubin? Thank you, Sam, for joining us.
Mark, happy to. You know, the word that we have been bandying about for the last several days is duration. And the concern is, you know, is this sort of a summer of labor woes, or does it extend to the fall or beyond? No less than Barry Diller, who you and I both worked for when he helped to create the Fox network. And then, of course, prior to that, running Paramount Pictures. He says that if this extends past September, it is, quote, disaster. So I think for many out of work, it's disaster right now. The writers have been on strike for 11 weeks. The actors have been on strike for 5 days. The actor strike in 5 days getting more attention than the writer's strike in 11 weeks has received. But we'll see what happens. But it makes me very nervous. Our physical TV station is in the same facility as Netflix. So we have strikers walking the picket lines every single day. And in the most visceral way, I know that picketing is important and sends this symbol and, you know, generates a lot of attention. But these people are just walking in circles. And I wonder if there's some better manifestation of use of their human power. And, you know, the thought I had at the top of my head is, you know, the Screen Actors Guild should team up with Habitat for Humanity, you know, and they could build a house a day as opposed to walking in circles around Disney.
I mean, it is sort of this is an interesting point. By the way, I haven't heard it made by anyone else, which is that there's sort of an old school quality to the way this labor statement is being made. The picketing, and usually the picketing involves picketing in places where the public comes or where there are other people who are forced to make that decision as to whether or not they want to, quote, cross that picket line. In this case, I don't know that you saw what happened at Universal. I don't know that you're getting that same effect as what I was going to say. You saw what happened at Universal too, where they're tearing up the pavement where they usually picket, where they usually walk.
Yeah, it's really Universal accused of 2 things: A, tearing up the pavement, and yesterday it's very hot in Southern California as it is elsewhere. They trimmed all the trees, so the picketers were on a shady sidewalk, and now those trees are bare. So some say that was sort of a dirty trick. And Universal says, you know, oh, that was completely unintentional.
Does it reflect? I know it's a weird thing, but do those superficial things, the kind of dirty tricks of it all, reflect the disposition of the studio?
I tell you what, this is very personal. It's extremely personal. And one thing that I think Fran Drescher has done very effectively is, you know, and you and I both have probably been in this circumstance where we're asking an employer for a raise and they're like, oh, there's no money. And it's like, well, look at the car you're driving. I think there's lots of money, you know, that kind of thing. and then you figure it out, and then you were friends before and are hopefully friends again. What I'm going to speak for her, but I think her reaction is, look how much money I, as the star of The Nanny, have made for the collective you. And I was well rewarded for The Nanny, and she refers to it as a gravy train, and everybody on that show was well rewarded, and it was great for us, and it was great for you. And now you've changed the business model where there are no nannies anymore. There's no sitcoms that do 22 to 26 episodes a year that run for 10 years. And so for people watching or listening, if you think of this as the widget business, an actor or a writer gets paid on production. How many widgets do they make? The widgets being episodes of television. So, everybody likes NCIS. There are hundreds of episodes of NCIS. Did you like The Diplomat on Netflix? There were 8 episodes. And, maybe for the whole life of the show, there'll be 24 over multiple years. So they're making far fewer widgets. And a phrase in my conversations with stars prior to the strike is, on the right hand, there's more work than there's ever been. And on the left hand, it pays less than it ever has. And what people say is you need 3 jobs to make the money you made 5 or 10 years ago with 1 job.
I saw this, Sam, in the comments. Here it is from Barry Joe Jim Bob. How many millionaire actors are walking the picket lines for anything other than the photo shoot? In regard to the specific question, we can address it, but I'm more concerned with what that question suggests about the public's attitude, which is, Hollywood actors, they're all millionaires, the writers do well. What's the big deal? So you're taking a little less money, it's a new environment, and everybody's taking less money. Could you speak to, A, the photo op thing, and also sort of the bigger question?
All right. For example, since this picket has began, Dermot Mulroney, who is a working actor, who probably has a better living, certainly than most actors and likely than most Americans, has walked the picket line every day and doesn't want the cameras because he's concerned that people are going to read this as a disingenuous thing. And he's not disingenuous. He's deeply sincere. I don't think we've seen the Rock hasn't been on the picket line. We haven't seen these sort of $20 million actors. And the vast majority of members of both of the Screen Actors Guild, especially 160,000 members, 95% do not work. They don't work as actors. You're seeing a lot of those people on the picket line. And the thought might be, well, they're not doing anything anyway. And then you are definitely seeing faces that whether you know them by name. Rachel McAdam yesterday here in Hollywood, Kristen Wiig in Culver City, people who have enough money to ride this out. But I think, and I sometimes think this word is overused, but actors view this as an existential threat to their way of life. Because one thing, I hate bringing you and I into this, but I will. You've had the experience with different shows, and I've had the experience over the years with different shows and different movies. It's called mailbox money, residuals. So I'll do a movie 20 years ago, and I'm still getting checks for it. The checks now are very small. But the way streaming works is they will pay you a little more the first time, and then there's no residuals. So, for example, Mandy Moore from This Is Us made a fortune on NBC and on reruns on NBC. The show now streams. Mandy Moore, the lead actress in This Is Us, shows a check, I think, for 86 cents. So they a major source of income was this residual, this rerun money. And now that the reruns have migrated from broadcast TV, where it was already pre-negotiated what the rates were, to streaming, and streaming runs unlimited, the money has collapsed. And then the other thing, and this to me is just an interesting 2020, the phrase information is power. So you're a weatherman at Cron in San Francisco, you're a weatherman at Fox 11 in LA, and you can go to the front office with a rating sheet and say, look, we both know how the show's doing. Doing well, I should be rewarded. Gee, it's not doing so well, maybe I'll be more flexible. But you have agreed data. You both agree, here's how the 10 o'clock news is doing. With streaming, Netflix has absolute pinpoint data, unbelievable information. They will not share any of it. They say that's a non-starter. So the metric of success You could be in a streaming show and nobody's watching, everybody's watching. You really don't know, and they don't tell you. And prior to the strike, I've heard this time and time again. The good thing about the streamers is the check clears and they don't have many notes. But the bad thing, Gabriel Iglesias, the Fluffy, the heavyset comic, who had a long-running series on Netflix, said they never spoke to him once. He never learned how it was doing. He had no idea if it was successful or not. So that's weird.
And this is important because Fran Drescher made this point, but it's clearly something that, as you might imagine, let us share in the profits a bit. Let us share in the success. If we bring you success, if we don't bring success, then we don't want to share. But the question as to how successful something is, you're saying, is completely cloaked in darkness. There is none of that information released.
It's not. None of that information is shared. It's not that they don't have it. They have it in a more detailed and granular way than broadcast TV ever had it.
Sure, they can tell you where people are watching exactly.
The kind of people and how long, and every other sort of intimate detail. So I think that would be frustrating. And you've heard story after story after story, and the unions are allying themselves with UPS workers and a variety of other laborers. And I do think somebody watching is like, well, gee, that's glamorous. It's all limousines. But both you and I have been on sets, and it's work. It is actually a lot of work. It's not digging ditches. It's not, hard manual labor, but it is work. And a phrase I've always said, it is 100 times harder to get the job than to do the job. Imagine that you're in some field where even if you're successful, 90% of the time you hear no. We'd rather have somebody else. And so, it's
that's exactly right. It's sadly, it's a pyramid. So the number of people who can really make a living off of it, that number is less than the number of people who are involved and trying to make a living at it. As you've said, many of them out of work. Here's an off point, but nonetheless, I want to get to before we forget. Luis says, Sammy, when are you and KTLA coming back to DirecTV? I miss you guys. Please become a regular on this show. Yes, that would be nice. Sam has made himself available on this show. When are you coming?
Only if I can get a jacket and a tote bag.
Yes, I will give you some merch. Go ahead.
But okay, so this is a perfectly good example. And this is the weird machinations. The parent company of KTLA is a company called Nexstar. They own over 200 TV stations. And they're fighting with DirecTV over how much DirecTV should pay them for the retransmission right of their TV stations. And they'll fight likely for X amount of time. And when the fall rolls around and NFL football rolls around, DirecTV will want these stations back on the air at whatever cost, because people will quit DirecTV if they can't get football. That's the most galvanizing thing. So at the moment, guys like Lewis are upset that we're not available on DirecTV. There's other alternatives, which I'll get into in just a second. And my dilemma is, I'll go to my boss. Oh, our show's great. It's number one. Isn't it amazing? Well, it seems to slip a little bit. It's like, well, it slipped a little bit because the parent company has taken us off of, a big service. It's not our fault. We had nothing to do with it. So, it's that kind of head splitting stuff. But KTLA and many, many other stations are doing this now. We don't want to be beholden to DirecTV or Spectrum Cable. So in the case of KTLA, we have a website, ktla.com. You can watch all the newscasts there. We have an app, the KTLA Plus app. You can watch the newscasts there. You could get an old-fashioned antenna and watch it over the air in Southern California. So there are ways to still get it, but I know it is inconvenient. And to be honest, I've heard from many more than Louis. I didn't know that many people got DirecTV, but apparently they do.
Yeah, well, DirecTV used to be the go-to when they had the NFL package, as you suggest. Right. NFL really does sort of lead the way. But then now that the NFL is available in other places, you're right, it's sort of spread out. And people have YouTube TV and other things. Quickly, before we lose Sam Rubin, Sammy, with streaming being the thing, how do actors get paid who live on the residuals? Sam's point, the lady Beatrice, is that there aren't residuals, that once it goes up on a streaming platform, that you get paid the one-time check. It's like a buyout. you'll never know how many times that series was watched. And as a result, there are no residuals. That was the old model. Now they're asking for a sort of profit participation in the new model. So in our last minute or two, Sam, I ask you then, sort of to the Lady Beatrice's question, what do you think will happen? Because the AFTRA SAG people have suggested, hey, we'll have an independent data company to deal with just telling us the basic numbers without having to look too far into your business. And those basic numbers will be used to compensate actors in the same way that you used to pay residuals. Will some version of that ever happen, or is that generally right? What do they want?
At the moment, the streamers are saying it is a non-starter. I like that the Lady Beatrice is named the Lady Beatrice. So a couple things to unpack with what we've just described. So let's say, and we'll just use it, the Kerry Russell show, The Diplomat. Let's say that this independent body, there's a company called Parrot Analytics that SAG has suggested. And let's say Parrot Analytics says that The Diplomat is moderately successful. And that then SAG has a formula, people from the show would get paid extra from this pool. And then Netflix secretly knows with their own superior data, you know what? The show's not successful at all. Or you know what? The show is insanely successful, 10 times more successful than they're letting on. So I think that's a weird kind of data battle that may be worked out. What SAG wants, and this to me does not sound like an over ask, they want a pool of 2% of, I think, all subscriber fees, which would be a substantial amount of money, but it's 2%. Netflix keeps the 98 other percent. And so that 2% goes into a pool, and then there's some sort of mathematical formula. I don't know what that is. That The Diplomat in success, people get this, and I'll pick out another show, Backyard Barbecue, not in success, they don't get that. What I think is really missing here is, and this is old Hollywood versus new Hollywood. One thing that people points out is, the great Goldwyn and Lou Wasserman, all these, legendary people were creators. They were producers. These guys are all accountants. So David Zaslav has never written anything. He's an accountant. And so they don't have the same gut for it. And there doesn't seem to be this affection between Bob Iger, very off-putting. They're a little unrealistic. Well, Bob Iger makes $78,000 a day. That's pretty unrealistic.
That's a great point. I never even, to be honest, clearly the downsizing, I see it all as a function of mega mergers that have, essentially make everything just a line item and everything else, so they can afford a long strike because they're just not in that business solely, But that's a great point about them not being creators either. I know I got to let you go, but you please just give me a second on AI, because that's massive, and it's massive to both unions.
Yes, and a shout out, as it were, of all people, Justine Bateman. Brother Jason Bateman, we all know. Justine, many of us remember from Family Ties with Michael J. Fox. Justine Bateman is the Paul Revere of AI. She has been screaming louder and longer and more effectively than anybody. And she is like, this is doomed. This is worse than you think, and everybody better pay attention. So AI, artificial intelligence, and the ability, Mark, that a computer apparently could record the segment that we have had. Based on this segment, they would have the ability to synthesize either of our voices so they could get some computer to sound as good as you sound forevermore. And the technology is in its infancy, but is already amazing. So what the studios offered, they called an unprecedented deal, was, hey, come in, you're an extra, you're a background actor. We'll pay you for the day, we'll scan you, and then we'll own your image in perpetuity. And the studio's like, and we'll pay you. And the actors are like, that is the worst offer ever. Who'd want that? It's terrible. So some sort of language of AI protection. The Directors Guild, and I'm paraphrasing, we recognize that each of these jobs are to be performed by a person, and a person is a human being. And so that presumably gave the directors a degree of comfort that bots won't start directing shows, that they're protected. So what is the language, and I don't know what that language is, that would make actors feel comfortable? And actors are not saying, hey, look, we want to ban AI. They recognize, that we want to ban electric cars. They're not anti-future, but they need to be and want to be and expect to be protected in some fashion. What that fashion is, I don't know.
Feels like there's a gulf between, where they are now and where they want to be.
I like this phrase from John. He says, the end is knowable. That in other words, and I've used this very simplistic answer, the producers are offering $5 an hour. The actors want $10 an hour. Well, they're going to settle at $8. Everybody knows they're going to settle at $8. It's just when the studios decide to settle at $8, and that there's a big argument there that the studios in the short term, they're not paying out any money to any of these people. So maybe it's better for them. Netflix actually reports their earnings at the end of the day today. And it's
that's interesting.
This quarter, that likely won't.
Let me be clear on the point you're making, though. You're saying, but in the example you just gave, you know where you're going to end up. In this case, you don't know where you're going to end up. Is that the point you were making? Did I understand?
Well, what I'm trying to say is that uncertainty, there are like 25 issues.
I see.
So I think on money, on minimums, they know where they're going to end up. So I think 10 of these, they already know the answer. And then on some of them, they don't. And again, one other thing, which I'm not a labor expert by any means, they're mad at each other. They're pissed. And the actors feel most especially that they gave the producers an extension, a 12-day extension to sort this out. And they feel they were duped. They feel that the producers wanted to extend to give the cast of Barbie and the cast of Oppenheimer more time to promote the movie.
Wow.
And they feel that those 12 days, and they say this with upset and anger, were wasted, that they sat in a room waiting for the producers to come in. Hey, we've studied your proposal and we want this. They didn't. They really are mad about that. They're really mad about that.
I'd love to continue this another time. And I mean, just check in on this. How do you handicap it, Sam? When will it end?
Okay. I think July is a wash. I think August is a wash. I kind of agree with Barry Diller that it has to settle in September. The Emmy date is September 18th. That date is going to be pushed. But if you and I are having this conversation at the end of September, an enormous amount of people have experienced huge financial pain, and it's going to be a real problem.
He can be found on the KTLA Morning News. And you can, he does international stuff too. You're great, Sam, and great perspectives. Really a great segment. Thank you, Sam Rubin, everybody. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Bye, Sammy. Wow, guy really is great, huh? Kim, is he just awesome? He's a great television personality. In addition to knowing so much,
he's funny and personable. And I wish I lived in LA so I could watch him on TV in the morning.
Well, you can watch him on the app. He just told you how you can watch him. He's got an app and he's got
Kim, how are you?
I mean, my God. All right, let's do Kim's news, Albert, if it's okay with you, and then we've got some stuff to wrap up and a couple of additional stories. But I think Kim's news is important. Don't you agree, Albert?
Albert, thank you.
I agree.
Yeah, I do agree. Yeah, I'm just getting ready for the news.
Albert's buying sneakers right now on the
He's his top bidder right now. Yeah.
Yo, I see. Yeah, you got to watch it. That eBay, you got to keep an eye on it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what are you doing over there?
I'm trying to see what happens if I press this button, Albert. Okay.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Hang on a second. What happens if I press this button?
That's pretty good.
That's good. All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Okay. Yes, I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show. And as we were mentioning earlier, the two IRS whistleblowers who claim the Justice Department interfered with criminal investigations into Hunter Biden will be testifying at a House hearing today. House Republicans set the hearing after one of the whistleblowers, IRS Supervisory Agent Gary Shapley, went public with these allegations. The lead U.S. attorney in the Hunter Biden case and Attorney General Merrick Garland have denied those allegations. A Republican congressman says he is putting forward a bill. Oh, no, I think that might be the wrong picture. Wait.
No, it's not Gates who's putting forward.
No. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I go back
Kim
and forth.
with an editorial.
I can't. Oh,
she's
okay,
putting up.
settle
is that
on
Beavis or Butthead?
That's Beavis. Yeah.
Okay, Beavis.
You
She's
can't tell me
alternating. For those on listening to the podcast, she's alternating between a picture of Matt
you
Gaetz
can't tell
and
me
Beavis.
Gates doesn't look like Beavis. I mean, come on.
Yeah, in that picture he does. You're right.
It's this
Yeah.
carbon copy, right?
I think it's
Okay.
fair. Yeah, good one.
A Republican congressman says he is putting forward a bill that would defund the special counsels investigating former President Trump. Matt Gaetz of Florida said on his podcast Tuesday, he has a podcast, that in the coming hours or coming days, he will introduce legislation to defund Jack Smith's investigation because of a lack of transparency and what he called the election interference feature. I wonder what that is. The announcement came just after Trump said he received a letter from Smith's Capitol riot investigation informing him that he is the target of a grand jury probe. Yeah, defund it.
Yeah, so he wants to take the money away from that office.
Yeah, I know what it means. There's
No,
Beavis.
I'm just saying that's
Thanks,
yeah, okay.
A new ad released by President Biden's re-election campaign features one of the president's harshest critics in Congress. The video uses a brainiac Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's own words in which she recently denounced President Biden for carrying out the largest public investment in social infrastructure and environmental programs. Greene's
It does. Yeah, I've seen the ad. We should run it, Albert. I don't know if you could check to see if there's music. Maybe that's the reason we can't run it. But she goes down all these things that then you think, yeah, that's the good stuff that he's done.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marjorie. Yeah, Greene's voice can be heard in the clip criticizing President Biden's programs to address education, rural poverty, Medicare, Medicaid, and labor unions. Okay.
Their envy wonton killing. I don't know what a wonton killing is. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
Yeah.
Indeed. Okay, let's get to this case now. This is a federal judge rejecting former President Trump's request for a new trial in the defamation and battery case brought by E. Jean Carroll. Trump requested a new trial after a jury in May found him liable for sexually abusing and defaming the writer and awarded her $5 million. Now, the judge this week dismissed Trump's argument that awarding Carroll the damages was excessive. Turns out drug overdose deaths in the United States involving cocaine and opioids together are up this decade. A CDC report says the rate of deaths from those drugs multiplied by 7 between 2011 and 2021. The results showed that in 2021, nearly 4 in every 5 drug overdose deaths that involved cocaine also involved an opioid. In Iowa, Governor Kim Reynolds is noting her administration's determined effort to defend the state's new fetal heartbeat law. Governor Reynolds confirming her office is working with Attorney General Brenna Byrd and others to appeal an injunction filed against the new law this week. The law effectively bans all abortions beyond 6 weeks.
Yeah, this is who knew that? I think there's been a stay order now, right, in Iowa.
Right,
on that.
she wants it lifted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they can move on to trans. After we take away your reproductive rights, we'll move on to the trans people.
Let's go to Oakland. No bueno. There's an elderly man selling ice cream who was robbed at gunpoint in Oakland. He is 80-year-old Don Juan. He sells ice cream from a cart in the Fruitvale neighborhood. This robbery happened Monday about noon on East 18th Street, and it was caught on video. 2 men can be seen getting out of a car, and Don Juan says they were armed with what he describes to be big guns. In the video, the suspects can be seen going through Don Juan's cart, going through his pockets, patting him down. The thieves fled with $120. Don Juan, though, says that's actually a lot of money for him. He sends money back to his family in Peru. Among them, his son who has autism, who's in Peru. Oakland police continue to investigate this situation. But yeah, broad daylight, God. This guy with this little ice cream cart, and that's what happens. So in Tahoe, we got some new rules, some major changes coming to Lake Tahoe Beach. Keep Tahoe Blue, the group, says hundreds of volunteers had to pick up over 2 tons of garbage on July 5th from Zephyr Cove. We talked about it here on the Mark Thompson Show. Well, because of that, starting this fall, the USDA Forest Service and Keep Tahoe Blue will be working on ways to ensure the beach still has access, possibly with day use fees. Visitors can expect more trash service, permanent restroom buildings, managed parking, signage, and enforcement. Officials say they're still deciding on whether there'll be a fee to park or to go to the beach, but people are trashing it so much that they need to charge fees to keep it cleaned up.
It's just unbelievable. We talk about this and rail about it, as Kim says. We've spoken of it before, but this is such a magnificent country. One of the things I love about this country is our terrific vistas and resources. I'm talking about just the magical place that is America. And one of the most magical places in that America is Lake Tahoe. It's gorgeous. It's stunning. And the fact that it's trashed this way, that people are so reckless in what they leave behind, it's an obscenity. I view it as grotesque. Yeah. So sure, if you've got to charge them, charge them. There's got to be a way. I would have, a litter force up there, litter police, whatever. I mean, really, Mark, is that what you want? Yeah, that is what I want, because
walking the beach.
These great things are being trashed the same way that people
you left your cigarette butts and your Pepsi beer cans here. Can you please pick them up?
Exactly. It should not.
Like moms walking the beach. Trust me, I walk the house every day. Somebody left their shoes in the living room. Somebody left their cup on the sink. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, moms need to patrol.
Who leaves their shoes in the living room and who leaves their cup on the sink? If you could speak to that, the specifics. Let me guess.
Okay.
All right.
Yesterday. This is just yesterday because both are guilty.
Yeah, but one is guilty of one and one is guilty of the other, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say Jacob leaves his cup in the sink on the
sink. Right.
Okay,
and I'm lucky if it even gets near the sink, but yes.
Yeah. All right. There you go. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So Julia leaves her shoes in the living room.
That's correct. That's correct.
All right. Thank you very much. All right.
All right. So this is kind of an interesting story. Meta is unveiling AI technology to rival ChatGPT. The tech giant's large language model will be available for free, just like OpenAI's counterpart. The program, instead of OpenAI, is called Llama 2. Kind of a little better, right? It's a joint effort with Microsoft. And NVIDIA is considering acquiring a company called Lambda Labs. The San Francisco-based cloud service startup would reportedly receive $300 million in a deal that would value the company at more than $1 billion. Lambda uses NVIDIA chips. And big controversy regarding this country music star, Jason Aldean, says critics have gone too far, attacking his new song called Try That in a Small Town. Some critics claim it encourages lynching and violence. Others are calling it the song of the century. The song came under scrutiny after the music.
That's quite a those
dichotomy,
critics really disagree on it.
There's never been anything like this.
All right, well,
it's a love it or hate it kind of deal with Jason Aldean.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the song came under scrutiny after the music video aired on the Country Music Television Network. The video has mixed footage from Black Lives Matter protesters confronting police, burning the American flag, security footage from random robberies as well. Aldean says the criticisms are dangerous and that the song is about taking care of our neighbors regardless of race or religion.
Yeah. The lyrics, essentially it is, try that in a small town. That's, as you say, that's the name of the song.
Yeah.
And so they show all this different stuff. And he goes, yeah, try that in a small town. Try burning the flag in a small town. Try spitting on a police officer in the small town. Try looting in the small town. And I don't know the song. I haven't heard it. I haven't seen the video or anything. But I guess that's what they're saying is sort of bumping up against objectionable fare or sort of a... And what do they call it? A lynching or a call to lynching or what?
Lynching and violence. I'll tell you what, Jason Aldean, I live in a small town, kind of. And there is a Black Lives Matter mural painted in front of the library and pride rainbow stripes painted in the crosswalk on one of the main streets. So
wow.
How about you try that in a small town, pal?
There's never been anything like this.
It's on. It's on.
What can you tell us about the scene?
I can tell you Kim is taking on Jason Aldean now, Larry. Yeah. And
Speaking of
try
a-
that in a small town.
What can you tell us about the scene?
And the crosswalk is painted with Black Lives Matter colors, Larry.
Speaking of $1 billion, players around the country have a chance to win $1 billion in a jackpot in tonight's Powerball drawing. Nobody has won yet. It's at $1 billion. So also the Mega Millions drawing is pushing 720 mil. So that's not bad either. We'll see. It's time to win. Time for this to pop. I'm telling you. It's coming.
Oh, thank you for the time for this to pop.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I requested that as a drop.
Mm-hmm.
And the great member of our audience and great supporter in our audience when it comes to drops is Trevor in Concord. And did I get, oh, this is about the Dragon Balls. Yeah. Trevor in Concord sent me the, this is ready for pop. We need that also. Did we not get that, Albert?
No.
No, we didn't. But I'm sorry. Now I thought it was the same thing, but it's
What's in the Dragon Balls?
Yeah, that's what sent by Trevor in Concord. But we need that. This baby's ready to pop, which you also said yesterday. Anyway, we'll get it. But anyway, it's nice that Trevor's there with
What's in the Dragon Balls?
That's his thing.
Indeed. I'm Kim McAllister. This is the Mark Thompson Show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Oh, let's finish strong, everybody. Everybody up. Let's go.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great, baby.
Let me kick down the door and talk to my cheap sons and daughters.
No context will suffice to explain the hurt and anguish caused by my words. I apologize to all who have been hurt.
I stand corrected. I misspoke. My words upset so many people.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
God bless America. The end.
There's never been anything like this. Do I hit it long? Is Trump strong? Huh?
Who is having that conversation?
It's fantastic.
That's not fake. That's real.
The science is ridiculous.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir. If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Listen to me. I don't want to hear you. What are you doing?
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
Why are you doing this?
There is no defense for my conduct. It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
You people are crazy.
You get nothing.
What's a guilty pleasure to do that?
Seriously, what the
Yeah. Finish strong. Finish long. I like it. This is the Mark Thompson Show. We are wrapping up for this Wednesday. Tomorrow, joined by David Katz, the noted former federal prosecutor. What a great week to be talking to David.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll sort through many of the legal actions that are being taken, both against Trump and against those Michigan fake electors. And also tomorrow, Belinda returns with It's the Planet Stupid amidst record heat worldwide. Honestly, the news from an environmental standpoint is not so great. There is news out of China today related to the environment and related to agreements about efforts worldwide to do something together, sort of like think Paris Climate Accord. That news wasn't good either. We'll talk about that tomorrow when Belinda joins on It's the Planet Stupid. What else is tomorrow, Albert? Do we have anything else tomorrow? Do you know? We've got
Katz and
David
Belinda.
Katz. Katz and Belinda. Is there another guest or not? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Okay, so I will then maybe bump a couple of emails that I've gotten to tomorrow. But I did receive, I remember seeing in the chat yesterday something about a story that Kim did, and I wanted to follow up on it quickly because I didn't want you to think that I was ignoring it or that we just played it off too much. Kim, you did a story yesterday about people crossing the Rio Grande along the Texas-Mexico border.
And they're putting those floating barriers,
Those floating barriers, they are razor wire wrapped barrels.
Oh.
And I didn't know they were razor wire wrapped barrels, but somebody in the chat did, and they mentioned it yesterday, and it kind of caught my attention. And so I went and I started researching it a little bit, and it's even more disturbing than that. So I just wanted to let you know that, you know, I watch your chat, I watch your comments, we listen to your emails, and here's the awful part, but it is now being laid bare. That a 19-year-old woman is found by state police officers who are patrolling this Eagle Pass area of the Texas-Mexico border. Mm-hmm. She was in obvious pain, again, 19 years old. She was stuck in recently placed wire, one of the many so-called, quote, traps along the Texas-Mexico border placed to physically stop migrants from crossing. Eventually, after she was cut free from the wire, troopers realized she was having a miscarriage.
Oh, no.
This is one of 4 injurious incidents in a single day in that area. Injurious is a ding word. According to a new email, and this is the key, this email lays it bare. The email comes from a Texas Department of Public Safety trooper. He sent the email to a sergeant. The email alleges repeated inhumane treatment of migrants in the state. And this is important, and I'll give you some more specifics, but you understand this extends straight up to the governor of Texas, Abbott. He's indicated he wants this treatment of those trying to get into Texas. He wants inhumane treatment. He wants harsh treatment. He's trying to send a message. The trooper's email said that razor-wired wrapped barrels have been placed into the Rio Grande in areas with low visibility. And that leads to injuries like this woman's. Like this woman's injury. They cannot see the razor wire on the barrels. This is reported from the Houston Chronicle. She was found miscarrying, trapped. That same day, according to the email, the trooper said they treated a man who severely cut up his left leg while freeing his child who was stuck in the wire.
This is not okay.
A 15-year-old boy who broke his leg while trying to avoid the razor wire covered barrels.
I get that we don't want to make it easy for people to cross the border illegally, but come on. What about human rights? What about being kind, decent people? Aren't Americans kind, decent people?
I certainly think that you need a strong border, and I think we need to do things there, and neither party has been effective in addressing this issue. But this strikes me as another level of awfulness. The trooper said that they've been told not to give water to migrants. In South Texas, in the summer, this summer, the temperatures, I don't need to tell you, are reaching 110 degrees. Quote, due to the extreme heat, the order not to give people water needs to be immediately reversed as well, said the trooper. I believe we have stepped over a line into the inhumane, said the trooper. They're calling for an audit to follow up on the email. The purpose of the wire, they say, is to deter smuggling between the ports of entry, and it's really not designed to injure migrants. The smugglers care not if the migrants are injured, but we do, and we must take all necessary measures to mitigate the risk to those migrants, including injuries from trying to cross over the concertina wire. They can be drowned, and there's dehydration as well going on. So this is all part of this Operation Lone Star that's pushed by Greg Abbott, the governor down there. Razor wire, physical barriers, preventing law enforcement from reaching people in distress. It's all part of, again, it's called Operation Lone Star. And they blame President Biden. Abbott does, and that's what but I didn't want you to think that I didn't get that, and I followed up on it so that I could just fill everybody in. It was really it was a brutal revelation to see what's going on there in Texas. Hate to leave on that downer, but I did want to follow up on it. I do have one other story that's not a downer, and it's kind of interesting, and it's quick, and I'll do that real quick.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The jiggling and jostling atop the global passport rankings continues to jiggle and jostle.
Oh.
Yes, remember we talked about what passport
right
is the most desirable one. Then we talked about what country. We talk about this, we revisit it occasionally.
Yeah.
For 5 long years, Japan has been sitting pretty, apparently, in at least this one, the Henley Passport Index, which I guess is the passport index that they look to. It measures global travel freedom. So a lot of the passports we talked about related to, like, a little bit of what country you'd like to be from, like with government health care, with quality of life, access to economic opportunities. These are all things that went into, and then freedom to move about the world. This just evaluates your ability to move about the world without being busted down to getting a visa, it having issues associated with the passport such that it's hard to get the visa. So anyway, we go to the Henley Passport Index. It measures global travel freedom in terms of how much visa-free and visa-on-demand access in the world different citizens enjoy. For the summer of 2023, Japan has been knocked down.
Oh.
Into 3rd place. Wow.
What?
Yeah.
Sayonara,
from 1 to 3.
Sayonara, sucker.
No.
And while Asia has long dominated the top of the leaderboard in the index created by the London-based global citizenship and residence advisory firm Henley and Partners, Europe is bouncing back.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
Germany, Italy, and Spain have all moved up into 2nd place with visa-free access to 190 destinations.
Nice.
Japan and South Korea are joined in the number 3 slot by Austria, Finland, France, Luxembourg, which is always a very good passport to have, and Sweden. Citizens from that particular magnificent 7 enjoy access to 189 destinations without needing a prior visa.
What's number 1?
What's number 1? The United States and the United Kingdom have both been on a downward trajectory. Is
what the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Yeah. But the UK, at least, appears to be turning things around. It's made a sprightly 2 rankings hop to number 4 in the ranking.
Oh.
Wow. So there's a lot going on in the passport ranking.
This is Casey Kasem on American Top 40 in Hollywood.
Moving up 2 spots, the United Kingdom, sprightly hopping up to number 4 in our survey. Any
reason why they just lump them in groups? Because in reality, Japan's not even down to 3. They should be down to, like, I don't know. There's 4 countries ahead of them. So maybe
you're
5,
right. They
realistically.
So the way the reason they lump them into groups, Albert, is because of the fact that they're only evaluating how many countries you can move about visa-free. So if there are 7 of them that can visit 189 countries visa-free, they're all kind of tied for whatever position that is.
That makes a lot of sense.
So that's the only reason.
Albert,
they do it.
thank you.
So Japan has been knocked off. But which one? Which one is number 1 is the question, right? Is that
yeah, that's what I want to know.
Yeah, I want to know it too. I believe
find out today. That would be nice.
It's where is it, Albert? I don't see it.
Where?
I am also doing my Google search for this.
I thought it was the UAE, but I might be wrong.
Oh, that's actually a strong contender, I think. That was last time when we talked about it. Yeah. I think they were number 2 or something.
Shout out to Nancy Benoit, by the way, who was jumping in with a 666. 666.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Nancy. What up, Nancy?
Big shout out.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I had the correct Henley passport index, not to the recent one. I'm looking at one for January, so let me try to find a more recent one.
Yeah, thank you.
While he does that, can I toss out a little story?
I do have the new title holder. So when you toss, and then I'll tell you number 1.
Okay, I just want to tell you.
You don't have to look anymore, Albert. I found it. Go ahead.
I was reading this story that popped up on CNN. and it's about poop. Can I talk about poop for a second? I know,
Albert,
I know you don't want to. I know you don't.
Don't we have a rule against this, Albert? I don't know. Why does Kim not know the processes?
We have processes and protocols and standards.
I don't understand why she doesn't understand that.
I just want to
Vivian, thank you.
Big shout out.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, the headline. Go ahead.
Pooping only every 3 days or more is now linked with cognitive decline. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's the first research to look at constipation's impact on the aging brain. And there's some
Emil Schaffhausen.
Yes, he's doing that. He's heading up that
That's
research.
not
Dr.
fake.
Emil
That's
Schaffhausen
real.
III. Yeah.
If you're chronically constipated, which means they define that as having a bowel movement every 3 or more days, it's been linked with a 73% higher risk of subjective cognitive decline. That, according to research presented at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference in Amsterdam. Our study, they say, provided a first of its kind evidence that examined a wide spectrum of bowel movement frequency. And yeah, so they say they were surprised at how the associations were, especially for those with infrequent bowel movements. So
I don't think you should apologize.
Stay regular, people.
Yeah. The family that poops together
thinks together.
Maintains mental acuity together.
Yeah, there you go. You're welcome.
I would have led with the Alzheimer's part of that story as opposed to the poop part of the story. But
I was just going to ask you how often you poop, but I thought maybe that was over the line.
I'm plant-based vegan, so it's all rolling at a pretty good rate. Elise, what about it? Shout out to Elise for the super sticker for 20. Thank you, Elise. How terrific. Thank you. In fact, Elise, I'd like to
thank you so
much, Elise, for contributing today. By the way, if you're listening or watching on YouTube in delay, I'd like to thank you tomorrow for hitting the little heart that has a $sign.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It is much appreciated. All of the money stays here with the show and helps pay the bloated salaries of Kim and Albert. Now, I will tell you the number one passport where you can
I
go.
found it too, Mark. I think I found it too.
We've got it. We found it together. The number one passport where you can move about the world visa-free to 227 destinations. I'll remind you, number 2 is 190 destinations. Number 3 is 189. So number 1 is number 1 by a lot.
Yeah.
And the number 1 country from which you should have a passport to move about the world visa-free is Singapore, everybody.
Oh.
Singapore.
Nice.
Singapore brings it. Yeah. Love it. Have you been to Singapore? Albert, you've been, right?
No, not yet. So that's on the bucket list. It's just an easy 17-hour flight from San Francisco.
I've been, and it's nice.
Beautiful. Clean. That's what I hear. Beautiful,
it is clean, and there's a reason. There's a reason that place is fun.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
It's Sharia law doesn't hurt. if you litter there, you may lose. Yeah, you're in big trouble. Wes, what up, Wes? Big shout out.
Big shout out.
Thank you for a $5 super sticker on the way out.
No big red for you in Singapore. No. No juicy fruit. No gum for you in Singapore.
Louise left. That's right. Don't throw gum on the street. We got to Louise. Thank you for
Big
Louise.
Shout
Big
out.
shout again for Louise. Yeah. Good stuff today with Sam Rubin, with John Rothmann. Tomorrow, as I say, Belinda and David Katz, the former federal prosecutor, on all of the coming indictments and court cases involving Trump and beyond.
Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
You can follow Kim to the Nikki Show.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Albert. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.